without further ado, we are going to present Making Lincoln Better one page at a time with our very own Phil Whitmarsh.
Before you start that first slide, I just want to say, Pat, Leach, if I could do a Romeo and Juliet thing with you right now up there on that balcony, I would. Thanks. Okay, now we can do the first slide. You know, I come from a family of book lovers and creative types. Like all of you, my ancestors started creating on walls with pictographs and pictograms. Very beautiful, very mysterious, didn't know what they meant, don't know what they were trying to say, so luckily we moved to stone tablets and alphabets and symbols, characters, and started putting things on stone, which was great because they would last forever and be archived forever. We went from scrolls then to books, and books when they started out, remember, were very expensive to create, and a sign of wealth was to have a lot of books. Now with printing, everybody can have a book. Books are ubiquitous, they're everywhere, but it just doesn't make sense to me that 33% of graduates from high school aren't reading more books. 42% of college graduates aren't reading books. What is that about? I'm all for shortening language. I'm all for using language to say those important things that we want to say in little sound bites. There's a time and a place for that, as long as these are also invitations. Invitations to discussion, opportunities to have lively discussion about different topics and ideas. But I think what is really challenging is that when our communication becomes a gesture or a single word, we're failing to communicate the full concept. And not everyone is understanding the context. It's not always an invitation for that conversation. So we need the context. We need that additional information so that can begin a conversation. Because if we don't make the context clear, other people will hijack our communication. They'll take our symbols, they'll take our gestures, they'll take our words, and they'll decide for us how it's going to be communicated. And that can be even more confusing. And again, it's a mic drop situation. It's not something that's inviting conversation. How are our brains affected by this shortening of use of language? Well, when we're using t-shirts and tweets at 140 characters at a time, it's causing our brain to adapt to short-form communication. Studies are showing if we're not reading long-form books, our brains are not used to reading in long form. We're more used to reading 124 characters at a time. We become adaptive to that. And it's harder to share complex information, share those complex stories in another form. Sometimes that image is worth 1,000 words and needs to invite the conversation. And who started emojis anyway? And I'm really bummed out that I just got an iPhone and now my iPhone is suggesting that instead of using some words, it's telling me what emojis would be better. And it makes it more confusing when people are protesting and trying to share an idea that you have to stand and try to translate what are they saying with emojis. As long as they don't get to books, well, shit. Too late. But you know, I want everyone to think tonight that book reading, be reminded that book reading opens up your brain. It helps you learn new things, it helps you imagine new possibilities, it helps you start those conversations. Books are helping us clarify our values and also helping us be more empathetic to others. Take just a moment and remember your first book experience. You were probably a child. Someone was reading to you. Do you still have that book? Do you still remember that book? Wasn't that book treasure? Isn't that book still treasure? You know, our niece and our grandsons are crazy about books too. Again, I think it's a genetic thing. But they love books, and our niece is reading 3 or 4 books at a time. Pat will tell you she comes to the library and takes out stacks of books. So what I want you to do, if you do one thing remembering this talk, I would like you to read one additional book this year. And I'd love for you to give a book as a gift this year, okay? Also, so give one more, read one more, and then
What's the third one, Phil?
the third one, give one, read one, and maybe write one. Thanks.